Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I'm going to be doing a Q&A on here today, going through your questions I didn't do in the Instagram Live yesterday because I was doing two subjects. So anything you want to ask about OCD, just post it in here and I will cover that now. Any questions relating to your OCD fears, in relating to any area of anxiety, in relating to sleep, in relating to generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, anything. You can ask anything here. That's what this Instagram Live is for. The same as the Insta Stories questions that I put on here. You can ask anything in those too. I try and get on here and do all the questions that I can't do via direct message because I get so many of those coming in. So I try and get them all done on here. So anything you want to ask, let me know. Someone get started on here and I will get straight into that. Whilst everyone's waiting to join, I'll cover a little bit about physical anxiety and what that meant for me in my journey to recovery. In the beginning, I didn't have much physical anxiety at all. It didn't really even come into the picture. But then, as I went along the path, more physical anxiety came in. I think it's because the brain just becomes more sensitized when you've been suffering from anxiety for a while. I think that's one of the main reasons, and two, because I developed generalized anxiety disorder later on, which brought with it a whole host of anxiety physical sensations. Physical sensations, their worst was like constant nausea, constant gastroesophageal reflux, so just burning in my throat, almost like you're vomiting coming up in your throat, which wasn't nice. And then, so that burnt all my esophagus, made eating food difficult at times. Had to go on like a diet of eating soup for a while. The reflux that you get from vomiting in the night that comes up used to then scare me that I would think I would get some kind of pneumonia, because you can get pneumonia from that. So I was always having to have the bed all propped up to stop that. Eczema, terribly bad eczema all over the hands and legs, and then that led to skin infections, and then I got a staph infection in my foot that I had to go to hospital for. Other anxiety symptoms I had, just feeling completely off all the time, dizzy, lightheaded. So when I used to work out in the gym, if I'd stand up feeling like you were going to faint. Constant headaches, really bad tension headaches that were there for a long time. Hangovers that felt like they lasted 3 days with generalized anxiety disorder, really put me off drinking that. Really pale skin, like kind of translucent skin almost for the veins, so you can see them all through all the blue veins. So many different anxiety physical symptoms that I thought initially were real life physical, was physical illness. I was causing it, so I kept thinking, I've got to go to the hospital. I used to go to the doctor once or twice a week. Now I probably go once or twice a year. And so all of that stuff that was getting in there and causing a lot of problems. Okay, let's have a look at some of these questions. What is your technique for dealing with intrusive thoughts? I have severe OCD. That's quite a broad question. I can't answer those kind of questions like how I get recovered from OCD in the lives, because they're very broad and it covers a lot of things. But the best place to see that is to come along to one of our group calls or one of the one-to-one calls, which goes into a lot of detail all about that and how to get under that. Any other questions you guys want to ask today? Just shoot them in on here and I will cover those. Yeah, physical symptoms when they really got out of hand when I was about 18, 19. Like I'd literally just drink a beer. My stomach was so anxious that I could basically be near vomiting straight away. That was a difficult time with those symptoms. The sleeping ones were a nightmare for a long time. Never had a problem with sleep for years. Even my worst anxiety, like no problem at all. And then just one day, it literally just clicked, and suddenly I was just something changed in the brain in relation to how the anxiety was being processed through the brain. I just started having very interrupted sleep, just all the time, waking up loads of times in the night, waking up drained, waking up no energy, all kinds of things. Now, let me get this straight. When I was younger, when I was at school, I used to get like 5-6 hours sleep a night because I was staying up so late anyway, and I used to go into school dead. That I lived like for ages, but then I became scared of not being able to sleep, and that started the cycle even worse. So I think a really good important part of what Claire Weeks says is obviously getting used to that is learning to bring it along for the ride and just accepting that you're going to feel really tired sometimes, and that's okay. And then as you become less scared of being tired, it's all to do with the internal control when you're trying to control sleep internally, or you're very scared of being drowsy and so on. Now I couldn't give a shit if I was drowsy. And an important message that Claire Weeks covers is that even a long time after she'd recovered, she noticed that she was still getting, some nights she'd wake up in the night and feel startled, have anxiety come out of nowhere. I still get that sometimes. So that will sometimes come on out of nowhere because I can't control what happens in the night in relation to sleep. So like if I've been drinking or something like that, I can suddenly wake up in the night, feel my heart racing just out of nowhere, and it's out of my control. But I don't care, it happens. And if I wake up and I'm a little bit more tired in the morning, it doesn't matter. Now that kind of thing, it doesn't really happen that often. But when it does, it can be a bit frustrating at first because I literally think, oh, I've done so much to get better. Why is this still getting me in the night sometimes? But it will do. It will suddenly sometimes catch you off guard like that. That's the nature of it. That's what it does as a disorder. You're not going to have absolute perfection over it. It's going to sometimes catch you like that, and you've just got to leave that to do its thing. Because if you're trying to control that all the time, it's always going to have the upper hand. You've got to get really good at just whatever it brings. So like, say for example, I was working out in the gym, and I'm lifting a barbell or something, and the plates nearly fall off, right? And it nearly falls on me or something like that. Then what can happen is very, very quickly, I could get very concerned about the, in like 1 second, I might think I'm about to be hit by a plate, and you can get anxious in that moment. But that anxiety that you feel in the moment is then because you're already doing something that's high resistance, that's getting your heart rate up. And when you feel that, can suddenly very quickly you can feel very scared in that instant. You might feel an anxiety sensation, but that is not those kind of things is fine. You're going to get situations like that where you might feel that you've drank a bit too much alcohol on a night out with friends and you suddenly feel it sort of pumping away a bit. Those kind of sensations, you're going to have happen in life. That kind of stuff's going to happen. It's not going to go away fully. You're not going to fully be able to get away from all of that. So that's a really important point, because otherwise people try and bolt down recovery too tightly. They're like, oh, okay, I've got to get so good at anxiety recovery that I don't have a single physical sensation. Let me explain to you why that's definitely not going to happen. Because, for example, in life, you are going to have situations that suddenly catch you off guard and scare you, or situations that suddenly raise your anxiety up, or that's going to happen as part of being human. But that's not a problem. It's the chronic switched on long-term anxiety which is the thing that causes the problem, and that's the thing that people get concerned about, and we have to treat and get under that. But in terms of anxiety coming in at just different times, that's completely fine. Leave that to be. There's going to be all situations like that could happen. You might try a new medication, not to do with anxiety, maybe it's something to do with pain relief for an injury or anything, and you'll suddenly feel the anxiety rise up. That's okay, you can feel that. And you're going to feel it all different times. Like maybe you're on a date and you're moving in to kiss someone, and then you think, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't do this right now, maybe it's not exactly right. And you might feel that anxiety. You're going to feel that in different situations. You're not going to eliminate anxiety completely. But what you've got to get used to is getting very comfortable with this sensation of anxiety being present a lot of the time, initially when it's chronic. Because you have to do that. Even when I had the worst physical anxiety that was in there all the time, I still had to get used to bringing that physical anxiety along for the ride. Even if it was fucking burning in my esophagus and causing damage, I still had to get used to it there. Obviously I wanted to get rid of it, and then I took the right medication for the stomach, not medication for the mind, medication for the stomach, omeprazole to help with the stomach. And so taking that to help with the stomach situation was important. But I had to still get used to that I would still have those symptoms from time to time. There's some things that I still have today that aren't things related, that are things that the anxiety really ramped up. But I still have gastroesophageal reflux disease. I still have that. It's genetic from my father. So I still have to be careful with what I eat and what I drink. Now, when I had anxiety, that flared it up so much more than that. Other things, I have back pain from injuries from when I used to train a lot in the gym. And when I had a back injury and herniated a disc, that's still there. What other things do I have? Sometimes with the sleep situation, waking up with anxiety that just comes out of nowhere in the middle of the night. That one I still have. What other ones do I have? That's about it. And I think that is about it. That stuff is irrelevant to my life. It makes zero difference to my life in the scheme of life, right? Those are parts of being human. You're never going to have, I've never met anyone who's got no injuries, no other conditions, nothing at all, just completely everything is fine. Right, don't get me wrong, if I didn't have anxiety, do I think I would definitely have the back pain, the injury with the back pain? Maybe not, as I discussed in that anxiety video yesterday about back pain. Do I think I'd have still had a problem with gastroesophageal reflux disease? Well, I would have thought so, because it came genetically from my father. So I don't think anything specifically caused that initially from anxiety. Do I think that the sleep situation would be perfect? I doubt that, because when I was younger, I didn't pay any attention to sleep. So I used to just go to school completely knackered, exhausted, pretty much asleep in the first 2 classes. Going out all the time as I got older, not caring about sleep at all. So I didn't care about that, so I didn't take it very seriously. Now, the difference between having all of this is I do take things very seriously. I think very much about how that's going to affect me sleeping, energy levels, health, digestion, all those kinds of things, which I didn't do before. So doing that has made a huge difference, because I've tried to take things very seriously in relation to health, but not too seriously as happens with anxiety. Let's have a look here. Damn, Robin, I thought I had bad anxiety. Yeah, I did. It was very bad. I mean, of course, there's people with a lot worse. I mean, I work with some of the most severe cases of anxiety and OCD on the planet. And people come into me that have really bad situations where they're like literally vomiting all the time, can't eat, can't sleep, have to go to hospital, being inpatient many times in their life, tons of overdoses and so on. So I got off lightly from that kind of a situation, but then some of the things I did have were really bad, like the choking where I couldn't eat, and dysphagia in the esophagus. It was all burnt. It was like so swollen, no food would go down. I was eating food in a restaurant, literally started choking. I thought I was going to die. I walked out of the restaurant, I was just bent over, I couldn't get the food down. I literally thought someone would have to pull it out. I think I was probably moments away from where you have to go to hospital and have it taken out from inside. And that was very concerning. Like I couldn't do anything. I was just started dating this girl at the time, could barely even have dinner with her. It was a disaster. It was a really bad time. But a lot of that was caused by me through the background that I had, where I was weight training for a long time. I was eating lots of food. I was trying to get in all the maximum amount of calories and grams per protein per day, and I was following all the magazine recommendations at the time, which were probably wrong, and it's just I was consuming way too much and put so much pressure on my stomach, and really damaged my sort of digestion process there, because I was so obsessed with not missing out one day on working out and not missing out on the best gains I could in the gym and so on, and that's what caused so much of a problem. And so that was one situation. And then yes, things like when I got the infection in my foot, from when the eczema got bad and then became a staph infection in my foot, then I had a cellulitis in my leg. Those kind of situations, they were really not nice. Couldn't even walk, but they were things that could have been avoided, because if I had noticed them before, as I did when I found out about them, I never got them again, because I took more care with skin and so on. And even if you've got anxiety and you take care, like the same with gum infections, all that kind of stuff, if you're really watching for things, you can be aware of what your physical symptoms are going to cause a problem with, and make sure that they don't cause you that you've got prevention plan in position for whatever symptoms come along and try and cause you trouble. So I think that's really important. Okay, let's have a look at these questions. Any suggestion on how able to control your own sleep? Well, you're not going to be able to control sleep, okay? When you've tried to control sleep, you've lost, okay? You lose the battle instantly. You can't control sleep. You've got to give that up. If I wake up and I've had 5 or 6 hours sleep because I've been working a lot, been really sort of working very late, and then I've got someone see early, and I've just had one of those sort of nights a bit up and down, I couldn't give a damn that I'm drowsy. So what? It makes the day a little bit more difficult. But imagine what Navy SEALs, Army, all those kind of guys get when people were living through wartime in the past, constantly not sleeping. Napoleon was sleeping on his horse for like 15-minute breaks. Albert Ellis was sleeping for 3 hours a day because he had some kind of sleep problem. I don't know if he had a sleep problem or if it was a gene that he had. There are some people who have a gene that they said that Margaret Thatcher had that gene. A lot of other leaders had that gene. In a book I was reading about sleep, where they can sort of get the brains can feel completely rested and replenished on 3 or 4 hours sleep just based on the genetic condition. Whether Albert Ellis had that, I don't know. It's been a long time ago since I read his book about his own life, not the books about anxiety and so on. And I think he did suffer with sleep as well, and it wasn't just a case of feeling refreshed and he was okay on less sleep. I mean, and Albert Ellis had so many health problems himself. He was in and out of hospital all in his childhood, problems with, I think, with his stomach and so on. He had lots of surgeries, and that's where he developed a lot of his rational thinking from, all those experiences that he went through. My dreams are horrible, have to accept them as well. Dreams are horrible. I had constant nightmares for years. I can't even remember the nights where I didn't have nightmares. Every single night was being either tortured or killed in every single dream for years. So I just got used to it. It's just the way I lived. Yesterday I had really much anxiety, which took very much shape as pain in the stomach, having to go to the toilet. Yeah, IBS and diarrhea, all those things, now the chronic ones that I was having with OCD and anxiety, that really just, it always tends to get in there and lock into that. So you will experience that, definitely. That is a really common anxiety symptom. Can we find anywhere some highlights about your story? I'm going to do an Instagram live all specifically about my recovery journey, or what it felt like, what the process was like. I will do all of that on here in the next week or two. Let's have a look. When I'm at home, I'm okay, but when I'm at work, my existential OCD flares up worse. Yeah, we need to get under what you're scared of in relation to existential, so we can have a look at that and break that fear down. What are the first steps to defeating OCD? I'll cover that. It's a very broad question, so I tend to cover that in the coaching sessions or in another live specifically to do with that. How to navigate doubt about the overwhelming anxiety has lifted. Are you scared that the overwhelming anxiety has lifted? Is that the problem? Oh, thinking my ritual isn't complete. Yeah, I'd have to look at your particular situation to see how you're looking at that and how you're thinking about that to get under that. Okay, guys, this is just going to be a quick Instagram live. Well, it's a reasonable length one today. I will cover my own journey in a lot more detail in another Instagram live. Probably later today or tomorrow, so I will see you guys on that. All right, guys, see you later. Take it easy.